So, welcome back to another exciting episode of Paladin Financial Talk. I am your host, Ellie Robison, today, joined by my always co-host, Tony Shore, to help facilitate any awkward moments. But I am also having a special guest joining us today to help dive into a summer lifestyle series on wedding planning. So, at Paladin, we often discuss the financial aspects of planning a wedding because, let's face it, weddings can be a significant impact on your financial plan if not properly managed or just anticipated with your advisor. So, however, today we're going to shift gears a little bit, and we've invited our guest to share some insights into what it's like to plan a wedding in 2024.
I'm excited about this topic.
I'm so excited too.
Yeah.
It is so relevant, and we're going to cover everything from costs to trends to creative ideas and more. So with over 8 years of experience in the wedding industry, our guest is the owner and lead wedding planner at Ever Weddings and Events right here in the Twin Cities. So please join me in welcoming Jess Schoen to the show. Welcome, Jess.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited too. I think this is our first time where we've ever talked about wedding planning on the show. So this is going to be a good one.
Yes. I mean, I could talk about this all the time. So this is perfect.
Obviously. Yeah. Reminds me, when did you start your business?
Oh man. So my business I started in 2020.
Okay.
And then I had been doing weddings prior to owning my own business before that. Yeah.
You need to get your toes in the water working for someone else before you can branch out on your own. That's very normal, but
it was so helpful too. And figuring out do I really want to do this?
And you do. And you're killing it. You're doing a great job. I'm excited. So approximately 2.5 million weddings are held every year, and the wedding industry in the U.S. alone was estimated to be worth about $70.5 billion in 2022.
Crazy.
I knew it was a lot. In 1 year.
$70.5 billion.
I knew it was a lot, but when I Googled it, I was like, that is a bunch of money.
Wow.
You're like, where does this money come from?
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I think you're going to be having to buy us lunch.
Sure.
How much of that $70 billion went into your pocket is what we're asking. Yeah.
Yeah. I have to admit, I'm all over watching celebrity and influencer weddings on, just on social media and whatnot. And the whole internet, I feel was obsessed with Sophia Richie last year.
Yes. It was gorgeous.
Her slicked back bun, everything about it in the south of France, it was gorgeous. Yep. And more recently, Alex Cooper, you've seen, you know who Alex Cooper is? Yeah, she's
Love
the
her.
number one podcaster and on Spotify, basically. She just had a wedding in April and she had 4 wedding looks. I was obsessed. She had a drop waist ceremony dress, which you don't see very often, but I feel that's probably going to kickstart a
coming
trend.
Back.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you, what are you noticing in macro trends across the country, and then what might be some more micro trends happening in the local area of Minnesota?
Yeah. Okay, so you hit on a great one of just the different wedding attire styles, specifically wedding dresses. The drop waist is coming back for sure. I've seen it all over in the last year, probably. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
I feel even with what we're watching on TV, Bridgerton is really huge, and some of these older time shows are influencing culture today in style. And so I feel girls are definitely going more towards that style, which is really fun to see.
I never would have thought that. Maybe garden party type of, Yeah. I love that.
Yes. Yeah. So multiple looks are a huge thing for grooms and for brides.
Okay.
We're seeing lots of outfit changes. Other trends, no more wedding cakes. That's a huge thing.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. People, I love cake. And so I'm
who doesn't?
Right. But no, specialty dessert carts and interactive things for guests are more of a thing now. So I'm seeing that. No wedding parties are a huge trend. Spending more on florals, all of these luxury weddings just go so over the top. And so I think in everyday life, the normal person wants to try and emulate that as much as possible. And florals are huge right now.
I feel it definitely is shifting compared to 10 years ago. It was very all the bridesmaids matched in the exact same dress. And it's definitely, I think it's going into a more creative,
Yes, it's more
direction.
Artistic.
Yeah.
I got married almost 10 years ago, and looking back on my wedding photos and the things that I chose as design aspects or what I thought was expensive, I laugh at now.
Really?
Yes.
That's so funny.
Yes. So yeah, those are some of the bigger trends that I see for
Okay.
sure.
Anything like more local that you think might be trending in Minnesota or like Midwest specific at all?
Yeah. So even with the styles that are changing in dresses, there are more shops popping up in Minnesota that carry those styles, which is exciting to see. I feel like sometimes Minnesota can be a little bit behind.
Yep.
Yes. So
No, the Midwest?
the Midwest.
Behind the East and West Coast? Come
Yeah,
on.
shocking, I
Yeah.
know. Yes. So it's fun to see different stores popping up here. Definitely taking advantage of the beautiful nature that we have around here. So a lot of venues, more modern Scandinavian vibe venues, are popping up outside of the Twin Cities, and that's been a huge trend of people just going further out,
Yeah.
which is cool to see.
I feel like I've been seeing that as well now
Yeah.
that you mentioned it.
Yeah.
So out of curiosity, what would the average cost be for an average sized wedding? Because I don't even know what the average size is anymore because of COVID. I feel like
Right.
everyone went so small.
Mhm.
It might be going back larger wedding, but you
Yeah.
tell me, what are you seeing?
For my couples, I would say average is about 150 guests. So with that, my couples on average are spending about 50,000 for a full plan wedding event.
Okay.
That obviously fluctuates so much based on priorities and what you care about. But looking across the couples that I've helped, 50 is a very good middle ground.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah.
So out of the wedding planning checklist, like what are some items do you think that someone could cut costs on their own? Or
Mhm.
what are maybe some things that is worth spending more money on?
Yes, for sure. I tell all of my couples the things you don't want to skimp on are photographers and DJs or bands,
Oh.
because they can make or break the whole entire vibe of your night. Like, I have seen terrible DJs. Like, before I even got into event planning with all of my friends, we were all getting married so young, we had no idea what we were doing. And so some more inexpensive DJs were selected, and it can be so awkward. They don't know how to transition well. They're also the MC of your night.
Yeah.
So they're not just playing music.
Yeah.
They're guiding your guests through what's happening. And so I tell people to look into that when they're doing consultations with DJs. So DJ, band, photographer, I'm biased, but a planner or coordinator.
Yes,
you don't
of
need a full
course.
plan.
Yeah.
So those are things to spend money on, things to save. I love all the details, but stationery. You can find some really inexpensive options versus going fully custom. Florals,
Okay.
you can.
Okay.
It's a bit more DIY. A lot of the cost for florals comes in through labor
Okay.
and installations if you're doing that.
So a lot of brides are like putting it together themselves or making their family and friends do it, is what you're saying?
Yep.
Okay.
So they'll get their own bud faces, and their
Oh.
friends and family are like filling them the day before.
Okay.
That is, if you really want to cut costs,
Yeah,
you can do that.
Put
But
time into it, but yeah, you could do it.
you could do
Yeah.
it. It's
Okay.
not what I recommend.
Yeah.
I always try and tell my couples, I don't want you working. I don't want your family or your friends working. You're supposed to be enjoying the day.
That's so true. That's a good point.
Hasn't the cost of flowers themselves gone up exponentially recently, or no?
I'm sure that
What
they have.
hasn't gone up, Tony,
Right.
with today's inflation?
I think the styles are changing, and with the changing styles, like everyone wants to do hanging installations or something covering a big wall. And so those trends that they're seeing, they're thinking, this is gorgeous, I want to do that. And then they reach out to a florist, and just 2 floral pillars can be $3,000.
Oh my goodness.
You know,
yeah,
and that's
yeah.
not even covering, that's just your ceremony
Sure.
backdrop, you know?
But you're right, and you probably know ways to help our listeners and viewers out there maybe find, if they want to do something, okay, here's the most, if they want to cut costs in certain areas, how to help them with that.
Yes.
And okay, flowers can be expensive, but here is what you can do. Here's where they cost more. This style of flower looks great, but it maybe costs a little less. Is that
Yes.
something that you help your clients with?
Yes, and I always try and work with, if they want to work with a florist, I tell the florist this is their budget that they want to stick to. What are some different floral stems that are less expensive where they can achieve the same look without taking this photo from Pinterest or Instagram and doing it with these really expensive blooms?
Okay.
So that's a good way to.
I didn't mean to throw
helpfully.
you off. I just wanted to ask that
No,
question.
no,
I
it's
was
a great
curious.
It is a
question.
good
Yeah.
question. I
Yeah.
mean, I feel like maybe considering non-traditional venues too could be a way of
Yes.
lowering cost. I know that there's some very expensive venues out
There
there.
are.
One of my best friends, she's getting married out in Glacier National Park in
Stunning.
Montana. I know, in September. I'm so excited. I haven't booked my flight yet. I need to do that.
Wow, I'm so jealous.
I'm so excited. But what are some favorite low-cost wedding venue ideas that you have had success in planning or just have seen in general?
Just going to any sort of park, being out in nature is going to be super cost effective. I did a wedding out in Loveland Pass in Colorado
Oh, fun.
in last September,
Fun.
and it's free.
Yeah.
Like, you fill out a permit to be there, and it's stunning. Like, you
Yeah.
don't have to pay anything. So that, I would say, trying to get outside of a major city. So for Minneapolis, St. Paul, once you get like 40 minutes outside, there are some like boutique venues popping up, but you can still find some smaller venues that cost much less when you get outside of the city.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any tips or tricks for any soon-to-be brides and grooms on what to be mindful of when planning a wedding themselves?
Yeah. So financially or just in general?
Just anything.
Anything?
Just, give me everything on your mind.
So I would just have a conversation before you start planning and bringing a family into this, like reminding yourselves, like, you're on each other's team. This is for the both of you. Even if you have outside family members contributing financially, be true to what you want. And there are ways that you can communicate to family, like, I love you, but I prefer this.
Yeah.
I play family counselor a lot.
It
in my
sounds like it. I
meetings.
never would have thought of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just to stay true to what you want, make a budget from the get-go. That can fluctuate, like, as you meet with a planner, and they can give you more experience on you're in the right range with this, or maybe you need to flex this a little bit. And then guest lists too are something that I see that can affect your budget quite a bit, and couples go back and forth on. So trying to be as strategic with your guest list as possible is incredibly helpful. So like, starting out, those are the things I would recommend.
Okay, those are good tips there.
Yeah.
So for the people who don't want to do it themselves and they would like to hire a professional like you, what steps would you take when initially meeting with them as a new client, and then how would you determine their needs and preferences?
Yes. So the consultation or interview process with a couple goes both ways. Like, we need to make sure that we both, align in visions and personalities. We're working so closely together. So I make sure that that's a great fit. And I also ask them, okay, what are your priorities? Because one couple's priorities is not the same as another. Someone might not care at all about flowers. Like, I recently had a client who says, I don't want any flowers. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So, venue or food or bar, those may be someone's priorities, whereas another couple could be lounge furniture and rentals and florals.
Yeah.
And so I always tell them to rank their priorities. For me, that's super helpful when moving into the planning process. So I ask that question a lot. And who is going to be in the planning process with us is also important to figure out who's contributing to the budget, who has the final say on certain things. So those are some of the questions that I ask when we're initially meeting for a consultation.
It's a little funny because it sounds exactly like what we do as financial advisors.
Yeah.
Like, I go through a list of questions and say, what are your financial priorities? Like, how do you want to spend your money in retirement? Because like, that is the scope of the starting point in your financial plan.
Yes.
Same thing, just weddings
And
financial planning.
finances.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
How do you personally handle the budgeting with your clients? Like, are they coming to you with a set budget? Are they coming with, maybe like a gray area? Like, how do you handle that in general?
Most people have a window, a range, because they're not sure. Most of the time, this is the first time they're getting married. So they're not aware of what things cost. So they'll say, I want to be around 40 or 50,000. But then from there, I say, okay, I have my questionnaire. What are your priorities? Do you want a plated meal or do you want buffet? You know, those specific things can fluctuate. And then I can tell you with your guest count number, you're for sure going to be over this, or this is very doable. So guest count helps a lot with knowing that.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like that's a really important thing then, to go through the questionnaire and saying, okay, based on what you're telling me, maybe let's shift gears on what you're asking for. So
and that helps too with design, so that I know not to pitch something that is totally out of their range. And that's really helpful as well.
Okay, good. Well, Jess, if people wanted to get a hold of you and learn more, how can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram at ever_weddings. You can email me at everweddings&events@gmail.com. Those are the two best places.
I love it. Everyone's on Instagram nowadays. So
I know.
Look at the
I did
visuals.
start a TikTok, which I'm like,
oh, you did?
Yeah. So you can find me on TikTok at ever_weddings.
I think you'll be able to like get a lot of like audience on TikTok. The algorithm is in your favor. Everyone loves looking at weddings. I'm not even near getting married, and I love looking at wedding stuff on TikTok.
I know.
So.
You can scroll for a very long time. It's a little dangerous.
Absolutely.
I have two daughters. One's 19, one's 21. Neither are married yet, so probably will be calling you for some help.
I'll take that call.
But I know they look at wedding stuff on TikTok all the time, and they're not even,
yeah. Are you preparing in your financial plan, Tony?
No.
You should be.
I'm talking to the two people who are like probably going to say, hey, how much have you saved? I'm hearing the numbers and I'm going, okay.
You're like, oh no.
Yeah.
Start saving now.
Yeah. Or just pray for them to elope.
That's a great idea. And I also too, like, tradition is completely flying out the window. Normally it's like the bride's parents pay for a lot, and I'm not seeing that as much anymore. So you could be off the hook for a chunk of this. Yeah.
Or on the hook for some. My son got married, and I thought, growing up it was always the bride's family. I'm like, her family, they do all right. This is good. Nope, no more. And I mentioned that to my wife and my son, like, her family will probably pay. And they're like, what are you talking about?
Oh, really?
And I'm like, that's what I heard,
Right.
That's the way it used to be. So
I know, not so much anymore.
But I've got two daughters anyway, so maybe I'm happy about that rule in the long run, right?
Yeah, you'll use that in your favor later on.
Yeah, well, great information.
Thank you.
I mean, that's incredible. Yeah. And there are a lot of mistakes that I wish when my wife and I got married, it's been a number of years, we just celebrated our 31st wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
So we got married in my hometown of Worthington, Minnesota, but we let our mothers plan it, and I wish we'd hired a wedding planner.
Mothers.
To be fair on both sides, my mom got a long-winded Baptist minister who was more worried about preaching a sermon than just a short wedding. Yeah. That was not a big hit.
Right.
And my mother-in-law was in charge of the centerpieces. She didn't want a lot of responsibility. She's like, and so she wanted to take control of the centerpieces. She decided that she would grow grass.
Oh.
What?
For the centerpieces, and have on each of the tables, it was like a wooden box, looked pretty cool, with grass evenly cut with flowers or something in it, but the grass wasn't growing. So this is like a mistake that people out there should avoid. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yes.
If you mentioned flowers, some people should not do it themselves. Yeah, you never want to. It's like the rule in radio stations. You never give away anything living or edible or that can spoil. Mm-hmm. And you don't want to, if you're trying to grow something in time for a wedding, that's not good.
No, let someone else do that. Know when to delegate.
Yeah, but if I showed you a picture, they actually ended up working out, and it turned out people commented on them, probably because it was unusual, but. Yeah, but input was lost on a lot of it between us. And I'm like, who is the wedding day really for? That's what I want to ask you.
Right.
Because my wife and I got the impression that we wanted to do a destination wedding in Banff with hardly anyone.
Oh,
And we tried to
gorgeous.
talk our parents, and money you're going to spend on this wedding, just give it to us. Let us do this.
Yeah.
Whoever can make it, whatever, just our immediate family. And that was where we were going. We even reserved a room at Lake Louise in Banff.
Wow.
And
Oh.
we're filling up paperwork, but got complaints that, well, grandma wouldn't be able to make it, and that's not going to work. And so we ended up doing it locally. But at one point we said, well, who is this wedding for? Right? We've lost control.
It sounds like it's usually for the family to.
What would you
Yes.
say,
Yeah.
Jess? Would you say you see a lot of times the couple, and maybe nowadays it's different, but a lot of times I see weddings and it's like you let the family take control or the mother takes control.
The mother, yes. I would say I have to remind my couples a lot. Usually meeting just with the bride and groom, the couple, and they're like, oh, my mom really wants me to do this, or my dad really
Oh.
wants this. And I always ask, do you want this?
Yeah.
And I try and remind them. And sometimes that works, and sometimes we
Sure.
do end up going with what the parents
Well, we
want.
love our parents, so
Yes.
and they really did a lot for us with the wedding. I don't want to seem ungrateful, that's for sure.
Exactly.
But at some point, we're like, the wedding, that whole thing, the wedding, the reception, that wasn't at all for us. The honeymoon and the life afterwards was for us. Yeah.
Well, you could always renew your vows out in Lake Louise.
I was just
What are
going
you
to say
guys
that.
saying?
for your 40th anniversary or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
That would be
That's a great
stunning.
idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
You should.
That's a great idea.
Just
I
the
do
two
like
of
that
you.
idea.
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um,
No in-laws or outlaws allowed.
Right.
Yeah.
Just the two of you. I love that.
More
The
kids.
wedding that I'm attending in September in Glacier National Park. It's my best friend. She lives over in St. Paul, and she's like, Ellie, I'm so sorry, but I'm not gonna have any bridesmaids. I'm like, I don't care.
Great.
That's totally fine. She's
I
like,
won't have to wear an ugly dress
But
that
she's like-
I'll never wear again.
yeah, exactly. But she's like, but I do want you to wear sage green. I'm like, that's okay. like,
Totally fine.
yeah.
There's so many
I was
options
like, just
within
give me a
that.
color and I'll find a dress. And so I'm so excited.
I think that's so great. That's one of my favorite trends going on right now is no wedding parties. I mean, you can still have your friends there,
Yeah,
but your friends are like, great, I don't have to spend so much money
100%.
prepping for this.
Yeah.
Plus,
Yes.
if you have 5 really close friends or 2 or 3 that you've been close with, you don't end up offending one. It was hard for me to pick a best
Oh,
man.
was
it?
because, Yeah,
Okay.
that was tough.
I
Yep.
feel like it's so expensive as a girl to be a bridesmaid
It
too,
is.
because there's
Oh.
hair and makeup.
Yeah.
And so, like, my
Mhm.
friend, she gave me the option. She's like, if you want to do makeup with me, like, I want you to be there, but like, you
Mhm.
can get it done too if you want. I'm like, okay. Like,
Yep.
And I know it's improved, but at least back in the day, bridesmaids' dresses were
Yes.
notoriously not good looking.
I know.
It's almost like they're purposely ugly to make the bride look better. Is that
yeah,
a thing?
all the
Is that
brides
a
were
thing?
sabotaging their friends.
I mean, I don't know. I'm an outsider here. I don't know. I'm just the guy. I don't know a
Yeah.
lot about the weddings or wedding
Mhm.
planning or bridesmaids' dresses, but I know the one when my wife and I met, I was a best man. She was maid of honor at my best friend's wedding and her sister's wedding.
That's
So that's how we
sweet.
met at a wedding.
wow, that
Wow.
is
And
sweet.
yeah, and it was kind of love at first sight. We've been together ever since. But the bridesmaid dress she had to wear at that was, I think, like she said, I can't believe you fell for me while I was wearing that dress.
Mhm.
Right.
And I go, it is truly the ugliest dress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You saw past it though.
We called it the new gold dream. It was all one solid color of gold, and it was shiny material, like gold
Did it
satin
have
material.
big poofy sleeves? And,
Way back in the
yeah,
day, that's so awesome.
That's so funny. Yeah, bridesmaids' dresses are no longer like that anymore. They're
yeah, I
a little
know.
bit
It's-
better.
I hope so.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have one last question now that we're just spitballing here, but have you done any international wedding planning? I'm curious, like, what does it look like to plan a wedding that might be in Costa Rica or
It's a
Mexico?
great question.
Great question. I don't have an answer for you because
Okay.
I haven't done one yet.
Yeah.
I think it would be really fun to do it. There's so many more logistics. I would say if you want to do an international wedding, you need a lot of time before
Okay.
to really plan for that. It's expensive because you're going back multiple times before your wedding to go look through all
Okay.
the sites, and you can do virtual meetings, but you're paying a few times to go back
You
to
need
your
to
venue
scout it
and-
out. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
But I would love to do one day. So if anyone is getting married internationally, let me
It's
know.
expensive, but you'll get there.
Never
You'll
done
get
one
there.
in Canada?
No, I haven't.
You can be the first.
Banff,
Renewing
yeah.
your
Yes.
1,000.
Yeah, I'll coordinate the two of you. It'll be
Yeah.
super easy.
Yeah, that's an easy one. The
Yeah.
guest list will be low. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, but
All
that's on
right.
the bucket list.
Okay, good. Well, thank you, Jess, for
Thank
coming on the
you.
show today. It was so much fun to just chat
Yes.
with you and pick your brain a
Yeah.
little bit on that. And so thank you for
Of
joining.
course. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Yeah, and one more time
Yeah.
before we go, and you finish up. Sorry, give your email and your Instagram
Mhm.
one more time, very clearly.
Yes, it's at Ever Weddings, Ever_weddings on Instagram, and my email is everweddings&events@gmail.com.
And that's EVER, just like it sounds.
EVER.
Okay.
Weddings and events are plural and is spelled out.
Good.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, so you guys can reach out to Jess if you need any wedding planning needs, or you could reach out to Paladin if you need any
Yes.
financial planning needs. So you can always reach us at 651-842-8406. We'd like to hear from you. So if you do have any topic ideas, we want to get an email to our email inbox here. So info@paladinfinancial.com. And don't forget to give us an honest 5-star review on Spotify.
I love it. An honest 5-star review.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
what Jeff says. I got it from him.
Ellie and Jess, great show today. And that does it for today's episode of Paladin Financial Talk.
Thanks, Tony.